This is the Voices of Herriman podcast, the podcast that amplifies the voices of our community. Nestled here in the heart of Herriman, where everyone has a story. Whether you're a Herriman native, a newcomer, or an admirer from afar, I got you on this adventure. Welcome to the Voices of Herriman. From the Tiki Bar and Redemption Bar and Grill, this is Voices of Herriman. I'm your host, Kevin Allred, and with us today is the Mayor of Herriman, Lorin Palmer. Mayor, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
Man, I'm so excited. So
makes one of us.
One of us. Hey, so you just had a kid get married. How was that? Was that fun?
That was a new phase of life for sure. That was something. Glad to be over. Glad to have it over. Had the reception in our backyard. So, but we love his wife. She's a sweetheart. She's going to be good addition to the family. Grandpa was mentioned, and that was kind of not ready for that. Let's just say that I'm too young. Although I'm not, but you feel it's a next phase that I don't think you can prepare for.
No, you can't. That leads me to my first question.
Okay.
What are your grandkids going to call you?
Oh my gosh. Ooh, my kids call me Padre. I don't know why. They call me Padre.
All right.
I don't know why that's stuck. I don't know. Be Grand Padre? I don't know. I've never, because for both of them, they're going to be the first grandkids, I think, on both sides. On all sides, three sides, because my ex-wife there, I think. So I don't know. We're going to have to fight over who gets grandpa. I want to be grandpa.
You want to be grandpa?
Just because my grandparents have always just been grandpa. So I want to just be grandpa.
Mayor Lorin.
Grandpa Mayor Lorin.
I like it. So you come from a small town of Price. Mm-hmm. You moved up here and eventually you decide to get moving into some different political fields. The first field you got involved in was the Responsible Growth Committee, right? Mm-hmm. What was the deciding factor for you getting involved in that organization?
A lot of people think it was to oppose growth and oppose, high density housing was a buzzword for a while. It really was. We felt like it wasn't just in Herriman, it was in a lot of areas in the state that the growth was coming. And the infrastructure wasn't in place to handle the growth. The planning wasn't there to handle the growth that was coming. We knew the growth was coming, but the planning we didn't feel like was there. The growth wasn't. And we just wanted to understand why. Was it a financial thing? Was it a lack of planning? Was it just pushing so hard? So really it was, we kind of became as the anti-high density, the anti-growth, but it really wasn't the motivation behind that group. It really was to say, okay, the growth is coming, but where's the infrastructure? Where's the funding to build maybe some east-west freeways out here, some east-west connections? What is it? Are we going to build some job centers out here to keep, because you can't solve all your traffic problems just by building more roads. Mm-hmm. So is it putting jobs in this area? Is it creating an entire, community out here where you don't have to leave this area of the valley? It's that kind of infrastructure are you ready for it? Are you ready for this growth that's coming, that's approved? Still even in Herriman to this day, there's 12,000 homes approved, but haven't been built. Like, are we staying ahead of that with infrastructure to where we're not reacting down the road? We're ahead of it. We're proactive. So it's not, so it doesn't affect quality of life right out of the gate.
Absolutely. So it's still a really big jump from Citizens for Responsible Growth to the mayor, right? Running for mayor.
Right.
What things happen to say, I'm doing good here. And you were also on the planning commission as well, mm-hmm. But it's still a big jump to go to mayor. What things happened that made you want to serve or make you want to get involved in a governmental level?
I don't know. Honestly, I still wonder that some days, how that happened, because it was.
Oops.
It really was. I had a lot of people approach me about it. I've been working with several members of the council at the time, and. Honestly, it was just serving with that responsible growth group. I got to know the people of this community, and I just fell in love with the people. I fell in love with this community. I saw the potential really because of the people out here. And I thought, man, this can be something special out here. And I just felt like we weren't, as a community, we didn't have, that direction, that leadership saying, let's become, what are we going to be? We're going to be in this massive county, millions of people in this county. you know, in the areas I've lived in, there was a culture, there was a, you know, traditions, there were things like, and Herriman was so young and so new still. It's like, we've got a chance to create what we want as residents out here. What do we want Herriman to be? You know, we've been a agricultural community. We want to kind of hang on to that, but what can we be? You know, because we've got to face reality that we probably are going to be 100,000. We will be over 100,000 population out here in Herriman. So what do we want that to be? What do we want that to look like while protecting maybe our roots? But yet we got to be Herriman. We've got to be not just part of this county or part of this. What is Herriman? What is that culture? What is that legacy we want it to be? You know, and we're the ones right now that can take charge of that and define that for several years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a short list of mayors. We don't have this long history, right? We only have 20 some odd years of history with mayors. You have come in with probably the largest focus and the most direction. Part of what you ran on was economic development.
Right.
Why was that so important to you to say, you know what, like, we're not going to necessarily tackle some of these other issues. We're going to focus on economic development. What was the rationale for that?
A couple of things. One, we're at that point as a city where we kept hearing, even when I was on the planning commission, we kept hearing the commercial will come once you have the rooftops. You got to have rooftops. You got to have rooftops. Well, where was the commercial to follow it? Where was those businesses to support that? And really it was, okay, it's our time. It's our time to go out and shine the light on Herriman and say, look at what's happening out here. It's not just waiting for it, you know, hoping that you know, an Olive Garden, for example, or a restaurant or a shopping opportunity comes here. It's not just waiting, hoping like they find us. It's highlighting, saying, look at us. This is where we're at. This is where we're headed. Come be a part of what's something special out here. And that's really where, you know, we needed that. We were at that point where we needed that. Again, it goes back to, we don't want to travel to the I-15 corridor for our shopping, for our dining. It's time to have it out here. We can support it out here. So there's that, but then there's also the offset with taxes. I mean, it truly comes down to, we need economic development to offset the growth. You can only do so much with residential property taxes. It just doesn't go very far. You need that sales tax base in a community, or our taxes will go up. That's the reality. There's two ways taxes go up, on the backs of the residents or on sales tax.
So what is our best source of sales tax income right now as a city?
Right now, believe it or not, it is Amazon. You know, when we speak at the high schools, a couple of us spend, we always spend a day or two at the high schools talking about that. And it's a trick question. We ask them what the biggest, sales tax generator is, and it's Amazon. Because of that, the law did change a few years ago that has really benefited, and really to the benefit of a bedroom community like Herriman, where
very much so, huh?
You get that, it's point of delivery is where you get that sales tax for. So it's now based on our population. So the new census that came out in the 2020 census really helped. That took us from, up to a massive change over 10 years. So that really, the state reset the sales tax based on that. And that really started having our first $1 million months of sales tax revenue for the city. I think that was last December. So that was our first month over $1 million as a city, in sales tax revenue.
That's how important is that to be able to have these $1 million months consistently on sales tax?
Boy, it's what's going to fuel everything we need out here. All of our amenities, because it doesn't support the police. People don't understand sales tax will never go towards supporting the police or our fire. Sales tax really just helps build the community, whether it be through parks, to build roads faster. Everything we want and need out here as far as infrastructure, the growth, that's what sales tax will help bring. It will help fund events, activities. Sales tax truly is the lifeblood of a community. It's what we need as a community more than anything right now.
So when we talk about like small businesses and like supporting local businesses and things like that, right? There's really two components that we're talking about now. One, it's just helping our local residents like stay afloat and be able to like live the American dream by building their business. But there's also a component of it of like, hey, look, the money that's spent here stays here. That money stays here. It helps with generating programs, infrastructure, those things moving forward. Is that correct?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's when you shop outside of our community, you're just supporting those same things in those communities. I mean, which is fine. It's not that we're not enemies with our neighbors or anything, but we are providing nice things for our neighboring communities by shopping outside of this community as much as we do. So we've got to change that. And it's not just, that's not on the residents to do that. That's where economic development comes in. We've got to give them the opportunities to shop here. But then when those opportunities come, we're hopeful that our residents will support those opportunities.
That's a big one. What is the biggest improvements that you've seen in economic development for our city?
I mean, we're on the map. I mean, truly, we are now on the map. We are moving forward. The council has very much laid down the law. Matter of fact, the only zone change we have made as a council in a year and a half was from a residential property to a commercial property. That's the only zoning change that's happened in a year and a half to say we're open for business. And we've gone out. Two of us on the council spent a weekend in Las Vegas at the ICSC show, which is retail recruiting. And we told our story. We were able to tell our story of where Herriman is headed, where, what opportunities are out here. And just one visit out there and the stuff that's coming, it's phenomenal. I mean, we've turned a corner. There's a lot on the horizon that we still can't even talk about publicly, but there's a lot on the horizon that Herriman will look very different in 2 to 3 years. It takes time. That's the hard part about government. I'm not a patient person. I want to see it now. I want to see those changes now, but it takes time. It just take time. Once a big development like, for example, it's a neighboring city, but Mountain View Village, that was 10 years in the works. That wasn't just approved overnight and then, suddenly you're Harmons and that took time. That took planning and commitments and, but we've got some good things happening that we'll see within 2 to 3 years out here.
So if you had to assess yourself a grade, like a letter grade, like a scholastic grade on the year and a half that you've been in the change in economic development and that push, what grade would you give yourself?
Boy, I mean, I hate to use it, but I think it's still incomplete. I hate to use that incomplete because I think we're not there yet. We haven't, I think we're headed the right direction, but we got to cross that finish line still. And I'm not, I think we've done well. We've got a great economic development team in place right now that it really understands how this works. We're trying to get out of their way, but yet support at the same time and highlight and bring leads. And we're pushing and looking for stuff. So again, I think we've done well, but there's a lot to do and we need to push some things across the finish line still.
I love that. I love that so much. I like the grade. I think that's probably a fair grade. I think there's a lot of improvements that have happened and a lot of things yet to happen. So the biggest thing talking about, politics in Herriman right now is the latest announcement of truth and taxation with the increase in the funding needed for our police officers.
Right.
Herriman currently is the 4th safest city in the state right now. We're also one of the fastest growing cities in the state as well. So we definitely don't want to get behind, but elaborate to us a little bit more on why did we get in this hole and why is it so important to make sure that we're correcting this deficit that exists right now with our police department? Right.
We can talk about the growth and everything. That's absolutely a factor, but really it truly has been inflation. We have lost, as just in our police department, not to mention the whole city, but just within the police department in the last 5 years, since we started 4 years, since we launched the police department in 2019, we've lost $1.5 million in buying power due to inflation and other escalating costs like salaries. So the same thing that an $8 million budget could have provided 4 years ago, if that growth would have just happened with inflation, we'd be at 9.5 million. Well, we're not. We're just not there yet. So salaries have risen. There's been, I don't want to get into the political climate as far as what drove that initially, but they've risen. They've risen 33% in the county.
Yeah.
We don't want to we'll never be the top paying. We don't believe in being the top paying. That's something you don't want to chase, is being the top paying, because then somebody else will always, Salt Lake City has by ordinance, they have to be the top paying department in the county. So we're never, even if you try to go past somebody like Salt Lake, that, let's be honest, we're not. Our officers, we love our officers, but we're not we're not Salt Lake City. We're not the same challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
Officers want to work here.
Issues,
Different challenges. We will have our issues. We do have our issues, but it's not the gravity that a Salt Lake has. So our goal is kind of stay middle of the pack, and that's truly all we're trying to stay with. With our officers, 6.5% raise this year to keep them, and that just brings us from bottom third to about middle of the pack. That's not taking us to the top 2 or 3. That's taking us to the middle of the pack.
So wait, let's highlight that. So you're saying right now that our officers are paid in the bottom third
in the county.
In the county,
correct.
So and that 6.5% you said is just taking them to just kind of be middle of the road. So it's not going to escalate them to the upper echelon, but we're getting them out and rewarding them for for serving us and keeping us safe. Now they're just not going to be in the bottom third.
Right.
Okay.
And it's not, and the tax increase that's being proposed will not, that's already in the budget. What the tax increase will help us do is cover the equipment costs, and the budget's, being used for that already, but now we're going to fall behind, whether it be equipment, whether it be trucks. We've got to replace trucks. Just reality is you have to replace trucks or vehicles, whatever it may be with, we get a lot of pushback about the trucks. We are going to look at options. These aren't a fully decked out F-150. They're not. No. It's almost just as much to do the cruisers as it is to do these F-150s. In the F-150s, you can carry more. We interface with our open space so much. You don't want to have an officer that can't. If you've got 4 on patrol, you've got something goes on in the hill, you don't want, to have to wait for that one officer that brings his 4-wheel drive pickup to. So there's reasons for it, and it's not a big cost. It's truly not a big cost difference. We will look at other options as far as other vehicles for maybe a detective, maybe our, some of the sergeants that may not be out on the road as much. So we're looking at all those cost opportunities, but really this is just inflation's hit us. We're going to need it for trucks down the road. We got to replace them, and we will need new officers. We were talking it truly, even if this tax is approved now at the 15% is what's being recommended or being talked about right now. Even if that does go into place, and I don't know if that'll be the amount, but we're not going to see that money. We won't see that money and be able to hire, if we decide to hire 2 or 3 officers, we're not hiring that officer until March at this point, by the time we go through the whole process. And by then, guess what? Olympia Hills, there's 1,100 homes in the bucket right now for Olympia Hills, in the funnel, if you will, that are going to probably kick off next year. We will start seeing crime, property crime, construction site crime as soon as they kick off. So now there's a whole area to cover with that. And those future residents aren't paying property taxes yet into PD. So there is a growth factor that we have to get ahead of. And every law enforcement officer will tell you, you can't enforce your way out of crime. Once it comes, you've got to stay ahead of it. You almost have to be preventative because you can't enforce your way out of issues. So we do have to try to stay ahead of it. But we also understand, we don't want to say, because the proposed is around $5. We don't want to say that's just $5 a month, because we know to people in our community, $5 a month
could be a lot,
can make a difference, right? So we're trying to be extremely sensitive and say, it's not just $5. It's $5, or is that what we need right now? It's hard. That's the hardest thing this will be the hardest decision I make on the council, is whether to make this tax increase or not, because we want to make sure you're supporting our officers, but there's an effect on the residents too. So it's a balancing act, and we've got to do what's right for the city, but also understanding the impacts on the residents.
And I think you touched on the topic. Is yes, we're a little bit behind because of inflation, but the decision also probably needs to be made based off of projections and forecasting, like what goes on, because it's easier to stay ahead of issues, especially when it comes to crime, than it is to try to fix things. Like we see big cities all the time, just never get a hold of it.
Right.
So if we can stay ahead of it, then maybe that gives us some advantages going forward to say, hey, look, we're going to stay the 4th safest city. I think that people would not be happy if we dropped into the bottom third of those things. Yep.
And I think it's important you bring up something kind of in a roundabout way there. The growth, a lot of people don't understand that property values have risen out here, but that does not affect any change in an increase to the police department. The only increase on property taxes that the residents see, or that the city sees, is through growth. And so that's based on an old, quite frankly, that's on an old number. So if we're behind and more is coming in, that lower rate that hasn't adjusted for inflation, we're behind. Every home, the growth in that can actually hurt us. I think Councilmember Shields made the great example that if we've always had a price tag of $10, it costs us $10 to enforce per resident, right? That's a number, right? But then the change happens, and now because of inflation and rate, increases, now it costs us $11 to keep that home safe. But then a growth comes in, so that growth comes in at $11, but we're still at a $10 tax rate. That's $1. We'll fall behind every home that's built. Again, that's a simplistic, but it's really, that's what we're up against right now, is the growth does not keep up. Growth really in Herriman has only paid for inflation. It's about $240,000 a year we've added in property tax to the PD. So over 4 years, that's only added less than $1 million, because our growth really slowed down this last year out here. So we've probably seen $800,000 in growth, but yet we've grown by, just since we started our police department, we've grown 15,000 people as well. So
that's a chunk.
And we haven't added officers other than, an SRO, and then we added a traffic department. Other than that, we have not added more patrol to handle that increased growth.
That's interesting. Now, right, because I think property taxes is horribly misunderstood, right? Because it's based off of percentages, not necessarily like the increase in value in your home.
Correct.
Herriman has not been well budgeted, in the past, right? We've had a lot of things that have been like one-time building permits and things like that was how we sustained our budget for a long time. Right. We have done a much better job of kind of getting ahead of that and using our budget a little bit better. Is there a way because we haven't raised taxes ever, right? Ever. Are there any other sources that we've looked at to say, hey, look, this is a way that we can support our community other than the sales tax and the property taxes? Or is it just really those two things that we've got? That's
the hard part. That's what you have. That's truly, especially on the police, because we do fund it through a separate property tax. There's no other way to finance that. We have cut. Can we cut more? We'll continue to look for that. That doesn't mean that the budget's grown either to account for that growth. The budget's the same unless you actually go through a truth and taxation hearing. Your budget does not increase. If your values increase, the percentage that comes to the city of that actually can decrease. Yeah, we get the same amount. We don't get, just because if our property values have doubled out here, our PD doesn't automatically get double. That's not how it works. We actually get a lower percentage of that to where it's the same budget, just adjusted for new growth. That's the only adjustment is made for growth. And again, it's just at that rate that was established years ago.
So when is the truth and taxation hearing?
August 22nd, I believe. I think it's a Thursday, 6 o'clock. And we don't want to discourage anybody from coming, but reach out to any of us on the council beforehand. And we can answer a lot of questions beforehand. We're going to try to go through everything right there, but that is going to be a crazy night. Of course, everybody's welcome that night as well. I'm not trying to say don't come, but we want to hear before your thoughts on this, your opinions on this before, because we truly, even last night, there were a few of us, we had a different meeting last night and, we were having one-off conversations. It's all over the board right now. We still don't know whether it's going to be 6%, whether it's 10%. We're still trying to find that right number. So please talk to us. Let us know where you're at. So they can reach out to you. They can reach out to their own representative or their own council member, right? We encourage all residents to show up and attend that meeting. Mm-hmm. If they show up to that meeting, there is a process for them to be able to share their comments, right? It's a 2-minute correct dissertation that they're able to give on that side of things. Right. The council doesn't necessarily answer questions during that time. So really, to get the answers to questions, the best way is to reach out to the representative now. Right. To be able to understand, like, hey, look, I'm concerned about this. I've got a question about this. And then to be able to voice their opinion if they so desire at the Truth and Taxation meeting. Correct. I love the way, sometimes I hate the way government works, but in a situation like this, it is healthy. Mm-hmm. It is healthy to be able to have the debate, the discord, all of these things. And
And I think that for me, I love the fact that we have, representatives that are willing to like talk about this stuff. So thank you for being so honest and vulnerable about that. All right, I'm going to share with you a quote. It's something that we've talked about before, but I think it really fits in who you are. So I'm going to read this quote, and then I'd like you to explain to us what it means to you.
Okay.
A society grows great when old men, not that you're an old man, but when old men plant trees in whose shade they will never sit. A society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they will never sit.
I love that.
What does that mean to you and your legacy?
It's so much of government like this, especially here. We'll probably never, it'll be years before we see a lot of the fruits of our labors, if you will, a lot of the results of what we're putting in right now. A lot of stuff that we're approving right now or working on won't come to fruition for several years. But you've got to establish that legacy with that long term. You can't, in this role, you can't want the quick return on your, because it won't happen. It just won't. I think we've seen some good things happen in a year and a half. I'm not going to say that, right? I'd love a few of the things we've got going on, but a lot of the long term, did we change a culture out here? Did we change, are we a more, I think I pushed that. I want to be a more positive, uplifting, supportive community out here of our businesses, of each other, more accepting, more, whatever that is. I don't know that we'll understand the role we played in this as a council today. I just don't know if we'll see that, or if it's 10 years and somebody's looking back and saying, boy, that was a turning point, right? That's where I think that's what's, really important, is establishing the culture now. You're establishing a culture. It's more than just, it's not buildings. It's not zoning. It's really not. It's not about that. It's about the people and the culture and the feel of a community. And that's what we're trying to achieve right now, I think. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. The people I've met doing this are what I hope I've had an impact on people, not on things, or I hope I have an impact on people that then they can turn around and, be a good in their community as well. So
I agree with that. I think you've done that. All right, we're going to switch it up just a little bit, get a little less serious. So we're going to go into our quick hit lightning round questions.
Okay.
Best perk about being the mayor?
Oh my gosh. Best perk. Man, that's a great question. Man. Having an excuse to be everywhere. Is that a perk? Like I love
that's a huge perk.
A reason to just be everywhere. Just be, even the foam run we had, the foam thing with just an excuse to be out there with my boy right in there with the people. Would I have taken advantage of just being in the community? Like, it's being around the people.
I love that. What's the worst part about being the mayor?
Oh my gosh. Knowing, even though it's part of the job, knowing you can't make everybody happy. Knowing a decision, there will be somebody, you can have two good friends on different sides of an issue, knowing you're going to probably disappoint one with your decision, even if you feel like it's the right decision.
All right. So like you mentioned, you've been in office for a year and a half. And, I think that most Herrimanites would agree that the council, the city, is going in a better direction than maybe it ever has. But what are you most proud of in the first year and a half that of your leadership, of your stewardship of the city?
I love, and it's something that a few of us started before I even took office, right? It's this Herriman, we call it the work from home lunch, right? And I love that whole, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but in my humble opinion, I guess if you could say, that has really started to change the culture around here, because it's been a different, I worried it would become kind of a good old boys club, where it'd be the same people that kind of came through, and then I would get kind of, I guess, isolated from really what was the true issues, and it was just be my close friends that were telling me everything looks good, everything's good, but it's not. It's become this different group. Even this week, there were new people that showed up to lunch this week, and it's just become, and we talk about being positive and focusing on, supporting local, and I hope that that's what I hope has been the biggest so far, is that change, that positivity, that support for local, and that hopefully that openness to approach. One thing I said when I first got in, I wanted everybody to understand that we're just people.
Yeah.
You know, all of us on the council, we're just people that kind of made the ridiculous decision to run for office. You know, look at our staff at the city.
Decision.
Our staff at the city, they're just people. It's their job. For some of them, they love the city as much as we do, if not more sometimes. You know, but it's understanding they're people and they're human. Are we going to make mistakes? We will make mistakes. But if people can get to know us and know we're just people, just residents like everybody else, then hopefully we're more approachable that way. People know that we have the best intentions. There's nothing nefarious. It's just, we're trying to do the best we can to move this community forward. So
I'm super passionate, and you are too, of the group Friends of Herriman, the nonprofit. Tell me about why that was so important for you guys as a council to create it. Obviously, I love it. I'm a part of it, so I feel really passionate about it. But why create that?
Well, I think initially it was anytime you're under an umbrella of the city only has so many resources. We've got to be honest. The city, for me, I'm a small government guy. I don't want the city or a government to be the answer to everything. And I think we were relying on the city to be the answers for our trails, for our arts programs. And funding right now with the quick growing city, funding's tough. It's tough when roads are important and parks are important. How do you find that funding to really support some of those things that we should be, focused on as a city, as a culture, as arts, all this stuff that those are our values out here. We want those things in our community, but how can we support them more? And right out of the gate, I had people day one, how can I get involved? How can I get involved? So we had these people coming, like, how do we get involved? Well, we didn't have a lot of options for people. It was come out to the events, get on this committee, but it wasn't functioning probably the way it should have been, being under the city. So by rolling it out of the city, we're just allowing residents to come in, and those have become committees of 2 or 3 to committees of 10 and 20, and people wanting to help. And, it's funny, just this morning, I'll tell you this, friends, just this morning, to me, this morning is what it's supposed to be about. Representative Jeff Stenquist, he's a state rep out of Draper.
Yeah.
Right. Very passionate about trails and mountain biking. He passed a bill a couple of years ago, last session, to get money for recreation in the state, recognizing that the state's growing, more people are coming, but we haven't added funding towards recreation as much as we could have to keep up with that. So he's a mountain biker. So I connected him with our trails coordinator right now, our trails committee head right now. And they rode the trails this morning. Just this morning, they were out on the trails together. And he's got $17 million from his program that I don't know if under a city program, and that's not about any person specifically, it's that we've given them the opportunity to let, spread their wings and fly, if you will. It's more, go do your thing. Let's, whatever we can do, we'll support you as far as resources from the city if we can. But this is your thing. Go find resources for arts programs, for a culture. And that's happening. There's more and more money already being funneled into the city because people will donate to a nonprofit more than will donate. Yeah. I tell everybody, donating to a city is called a tax. And not everybody's willing to pay another tax, but donating to a nonprofit, all day long. Well, that's what you asked for your birthday. But shout out to Brandon, who is doing a phenomenal job with trails. And I'll give a plug for Friends of Herriman. There's Instagram and Facebook. Go follow. There's arts, there's parks, there's trails, there's culture, right? There's all of those. There's a student advisory board, right? There are so many ways to be able to be involved that just do it. Oh man, I'm so passionate about that. I'm so grateful that you guys are able to set that up. What's a fact about you that very few people know? Oh boy. Probably the fact that as much as I love being out with people, I love taking an hour or two at night to myself. I just love, as much as I love being with people, I need some time just by myself, whether it's on my back deck, whether it's, put something on Netflix at the end of the night. I need that time for me to reflect, to look back and just contemplate just be me for a minute. So, I I don't know if a lot of people realize that as much as I like being around people, I need that time for
You
me.
need that decompression.
Yes.
I can imagine. Who or what is your biggest supporter in your role as mayor?
Right. Of course, it starts with family. My wife, I always get emotional when I talk about my wife, what she does. She works 50, 60 hours a week. You know, especially during summer with Cohen home, you know, he's home at summer. Still the fact that she's stressed, she's got a super high stress, you know, super stressful job that she still supports. If I need to run to a meeting, she, you know, we've got this, Cohen can stay here. I know it slows down her day, but it's just, she's so supportive. My kids have all been supportive. The older ones, you know, they're gone, you know, they're all out of the house now, moved on, but they still come back around for events, and they've, you know, marched in the parade a couple of years ago when we were campaigning, and just my family's just been so supportive. Cohen is just mini mayor, as everybody called him. It's just like,
yes,
he's living a life that nobody else will, you know, I mean, my other kids too, but very few kids experience some stuff like this, where he feels like he has his own cubicle at City Hall. And like, there's just, but you know, support my sister, my wife has just been my rock, and just truly I'm so grateful for, I couldn't do this without her. She's the unsung hero behind this. I get all the, you know, public praise, if you will, whatever, but she really puts in just as much time supporting as I put in doing this.
Well, and she is a rock star in her own right. Like with her career, like she is a superstar, and like you said, like she definitely has some sacrifice that she makes for the city. You know, not only for your family, but for the city that very few of us probably even like understand.
Right.
So we are definitely cheerleaders of her, Cohen, the rest of your kids, and your family. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Are you a book or a movie guy?
Oh, a movie guy.
A movie guy?
A movie guy. I don't read as much as I should. I don't read. If I'm reading right now, it's a book on, like, truly on city management or some ideas about that. That's the only books I read right now, but I'm a movie guy.
What's your favorite movie?
Tommy Boy?
Tommy Boy.
It's a classic.
That is a classic. That is a classic. What's your favorite line from Tommy Boy?
Well, you said we're PG, so I can't. But you know, probably a lot of people go to school for 7 years, and then Richard says, "I know, they're called doctors." Favorite line. Favorite line.
I love it. What's the best piece of advice that you got?
That I got
in your entire life?
Oh my word. Be true to yourself.
True to yourself. What's the worst piece of advice you ever got?
Run for mayor. No, I joke. I don't know. I don't know. That's really,
it really might be the worst piece of advice you ever got. It's a big,
I love what I'm doing though too.
Yeah.
Boy, there's been a few people whispering in my ear about some social media posts that I made that ended up going really sideways. You know, this was before my time as mayor, but sometimes listen to those little whispers about, you get caught up in a moment, like, yeah, we'll delete that right now. Nothing controversial, but it did rile certain people up that didn't need to be riled up at the time. So I don't know.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
So failure is never not necessarily ever a good thing or a bad thing, right? It's always opportunities to be able to learn especially if we use it correctly. So what is your favorite failure? What failure in your life has prepped you to be the most successful version of yourself?
Boy, you know, for me, I'll get super vulnerable here, I guess, but for me, I went through a divorce, a career change, all kind of connected at the same time. And would I wish that kind of stuff on anybody? I wouldn't at all, right? Not for a minute, for my family to go through that, my kids. But me personally, I don't know. I mean, I'm worried about my kids every day going through a divorce, how it affects them. I mean, it's been 17 years now, 18 years, but I'll still worry to this day how it affects them for the rest of their lives. But for me, I came out of that a better dad, understanding, a better husband now to Christy. I appreciate things more. I appreciate my, even a job, a job that, I can truly love, just, it was just a job before, not, but just everything, just, you don't, again, you don't want that, wish anybody to go through that. But for me, I'm a different person before that time in my life and after. Like there's two different me's in there. I found myself during that, where I think I tried to live up to, some shoulds. I've learned a lot lately. The shoulds, the most powerful negative word. Because should, what's a should? I've learned to get past the shoulds. Like shoulds are trying to live up to somebody else's expectations instead of your own. So but it allowed me to, start being me, being more true to myself. And that's nothing about it. Just, I had to find myself after that and really dig deep and move forward from there. So
I appreciate you sharing that. That's super vulnerable and super meaningful there. That's always going back to like the Dumbledore quote, like happiness can always be found, in the darkest of corners, even if one just remembers to turn on the light. Mm-hmm. And so it is, some of the hardest things are the things that really propel us to be better, better spouses, better dads, all of those things. And I can definitely empathize with that. All right, last question, right? It's only been a year and a half,
right?
Which means we got 2.5 more years, right? So 2 parts. What goals do we have? What goals do you have for the city of Herriman, for its residents, for the community at large in the next 2.5 years? And also, what do our leaders and our citizen and our community groups need to do to be able to help us reach these goals?
Right. For me, it comes back, and I hate keep going back to this but it's economic development. I think that is so key right now. That's why I try to spend so much time with our businesses right now, small, large, wherever, whatever I can do. Like so much of our focus right now is in that area, right?
Yeah.
Most of the city is entitled out, meaning approved, as far as there's very few land use decisions to be made in the future. Now it's just in those commercial pieces of property, it's finding the right fit, bringing the right people in that we, not that we have necessarily control over that, but it's highlighting, it's selling our city on that. So for me, it's crossing the finish line on all these big projects. 134th and Mountain View is a big project. We've got to get across the finish line. Yep. Got to get the Auto Mall up and going and successful. Got to finish out Academy Village. I think that's key
big
with
right now,
possible hotel right there, which, we've got 2 huge opportunities with Auto Mall and hotels. Those are 2 of the biggest, sales tax drivers for a city, our revenue drivers are hotels and dealerships. So we've got to get them out of the ground. But so we've got to get across that finish line, and doing so, bringing the community together. That's just, and you talk about bringing the community, it's just supporting our local. It's just, stay off the Herriman happenings. If you have a bad experience at a local, bashing them on a Herriman happenings or any social media, it's not going to benefit anybody. As a matter of fact, the only thing it truly can do, in my opinion, is somebody that's considering coming in is going to look at that and think, we're going to make mistakes. Say everybody wants to jack in the box and train in the table, a training table right now. Those are the 2 big ones I get asked as much as anything, or Trader Joe's, right? We get asked about that. These people are going to be watching. If they're scouting out an area, they will be watching our social media.
Yeah.
For any negativity, they're not going to want to open up in an area where they're not going to be supported. That's not hyperbole. That's what will happen. They will watch for that and understand if this is where they want to be. So support local, keep your tax dollars in our city as much as possible. Just support a lot of the people that operate these businesses live here. They're your neighbors. They're your friends. They're your, so we can do this out here as a community. We'll be 100,000 plus strong out here. We can be a strong community that still stays close together, that stays united, and this community, small town feel. We can do it. Like everybody think, we'll never be able to do that. We can.
Yes, we can. Absolutely, we can.
We can do that by supporting each other and keeping it local like that, and just get out and treat each other with, truly treat each other with dignity and with respect. And we can do this as a community. That's what I want to try to be, that leader. If anything, that's what I want to be, is that leader that sets that example, sets that tone of how to move forward.
Well, here at Voice of the Herriman, like the ideal, the focus, the purpose, the goal is to be able to share with fellow Herrimanites our voice. Right now, we're going to turn the time over to you, that you talk to the Herrimites and tell them what it is that Mayor or even just Lorin Palmer would like to share for your voice.
Wow. I would just truly say for the last year and a half, it has been the privilege of my life to serve this community, serve the people here. It's not about, for me, this isn't about me. There's nothing in this for me. I have no future plans politically beyond this. This is a chance for me to serve this community right now. I want to get to know as many people in this community as I can to understand your needs. We had a meeting last night about Black Ridge Reservoir. We didn't understand. I don't live by Black Ridge Reservoir. I didn't understand a lot of the frustrations. I do now. I do today, that's for sure. But, if there's a frustration that you have, please know that we want to help fix it. Yeah. We may not be aware of it. I may not be aware of it. We can't live in every neighborhood. There's 5 of us. We can't live in every neighborhood and know but we do want to help. If there's ever an issue, it's not for lack of caring. I can tell you as this council, it's not for lack of caring. It may be for lack of knowing about an issue, but it's not for lack of caring. So let's stick with this together. Let's do this together, Herriman, as a community. Let's stay positive with each other. Let's uplift each other. Let's make all of us better together. Let's make Herriman this unique community in this corner of the valley that becomes a powerhouse, that becomes where people want to live and people want to do things and people want to come to. And we can be that. We can be that destination and that kind of a utopian area where people want to be a part of this and be a part of something special. And I think we're starting down that path right now. And just anybody that wants to get on the train, if you will, get on with us because we're headed that way. And the more people on, the faster we get going and the faster we can make this happen. So look forward to serving you for another 2.5 years. And yeah, love it.
Man, put me in, Coach. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Well, we'll get signed off with our catchphrase. You ready?
Yes.
Herriman, we got you. Thanks again for stopping by. Just a reminder that mention the podcast here at Redemption. You get 50% off your mac and cheese balls and country line dancing every Thursday night from 6:30 to 8. This has been Mayor Lorin Palmer. I'm Kevin Allred, signing off. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a part of the Voices of Herriman podcast. I hope you've been inspired, moved, and have connected with the stories and the passion shared by our community. As I wrap up this episode, remember, the journey does not end here. Keep exploring, keep sharing, and keep connecting. Together, we can create a vibrant, supportive, and thriving community. If you have a story to share, a suggestion for future episodes, or just want to say, hey, I'd love to hear from you, reach out on social media at Voices of Herriman and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Before we go, a heartfelt thank you to Mix at 6 Studios for producing and editing our podcast. Head over to mixat6studios.com to learn more about all the amazing services they offer. To the amazing individuals who have shared with me their stories and our fantastic listeners, you make Voices of Herriman a meaningful experience. Until next time, take care, stay connected, and remember, I got you.